Okay, gentlemen, today we will review our questions to review what we explained in the last session. What is the most suitable method for data deleting in cloud hosting environment? Of course, this question has two answers. Of course, override and cryptography. Okay. These people who answer degaussing and media crashing, of course not. Do you have the permission? The cloud service provider, he will give you a permission that you will be able to spoil his hard disks or crash his hard disks? Of course not. Then this means that the suitable method, it will be the cryptography and the override. What is better in erasing data from cloud publisher environment? Is it cryptography or overriding, and why? No one answered this question. No one reached to this question. Okay.
Yeah, we didn't see this question in our screen.
Sorry?
No, we didn't see this question in our screen. I don't know.
Usama, can you scroll down? I remember I answered this. I don't know whether it's right or wrong, but I answered this.
Yeah,
Even
me too.
I also answered this question, but I do not know why it is not appearing. Yeah, I answered it.
Yeah, it's not.
Okay. Anyway, which is better? Let's make it as discussion. Which is better? Is it overwriting or cryptography?
Cryptography.
Why?
Because in overwriting, what happens is that it looks like the data has been deleted, but actually, still actually the data remains in the disk. So I think it does not get completely overwritten. In a cryptography, what happens is at least you are encrypting the data and destroying the keys. So I mean, even if the data is actually in the hands of some non-privileged persons, I mean to say they cannot decipher much information from the data or information. Why? Because it is encrypted.
Right. In case of overwriting, standards maintain or mandate that you can have the overwriting if you are able to write 3 or 4 times overwrite over the original data. And this it will be accepted by the standards. But again, even if you are follow the standard, which is better, cryptography or overwriting?
Isn't it like, I know, the cryptography uses blockchain, right? So technology, so it will not allow to delete.
It's not
the
allowed
data
to
is
what?
permanent, right?
If you will spoil the key, it will be permanent.
So then we cannot erase the data, right?
Okay, then in this case, gentlemen, the right answer that it will be the cryptography, that's right. And why? Because overwriting, even if you will overwrite the data twice or 3 or 4 or even 5 times, but still there is a chance, even it's minimal, but still there is a chance. And still we cannot guarantee 100% that the data, it will not be retrievable. But in the cryptography, if you spoiled the key, there is no way. There is no way that the data, it will be retrieved. Okay. What does access control mean? What are the
I'm sorry, Usama. So finally, what is the answer? So is it like overwriting or cryptography?
Cryptography.
Okay, got it.
What does access control mean? What are the components of access control? Again, no one answered this question.
No, I think I answered.
So we answered the questions.
Something wrong. It did not capture the answers.
Yeah, he answers the question as well.
So what has happened, I think, Osama, it seems that we have answered it, but I think it has not got recorded actually.
Okay, it's not an issue, no problem. What are the main components of cryptography? Of course, the main components of cryptography, what are they?
Encryption and
Key management.
Yeah, and
Sorry?
the key management, encryption and the key management.
Yes, encryption, not encryption. It is called encryption algorithm.
Yeah, encryption and rest.
Yeah,
and then
encryption algorithm and the key management. That's
key
fine.
management. Yeah.
What is the access control? What is the importance in cloud hosting models? What is access control?
So access control is based on the IEEE, identity, authorization, authentication, and accountability.
Okay.
And
What are we?
importance of cloud hosting models because of this IEEE model, right? Everything we need to identify and authorize and authenticate before the access.
Yes, the importance, it is used for the user provisioning, for user authentication, and finally the user authorization. Plus,
Right.
for the privileged accounts, it can be utilized using the 2FA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. What are the different models for cryptographic key management in cloud implementation models?
So one is the remote key management and the client-side key management.
Yes, the client side and the remote key management. That's fine. What are the different models for data deletion and data sanitation? I think we discussed this question before. What are the possible methods for data deleting in cloud infrastructure? We reviewed this question before. What is ZTN, Zero Trust Network? What is Zero Trust Network?
So zero trust network is
Okay, this is not so important, gentlemen, in the CCSP, because CCSP, they want just to know the definitions. It will not ask you about detailed information in technology. But anyway, what is the definition of zero trust network? Because this is important concept in the cloud hosting.
so basically zero trust is like don't trust anything in the network. I mean to say do your due diligence to determine the vulnerabilities and determine the threats and risks actually.
You are right. Okay. What are the hypervisor models? Which one is suitable for cloud infrastructure? Which one is more secure?
Type 1 and type 2. And
Which one is suitable for cloud infrastructure?
Type 1.
Why?
Because the attack vector, because in type 1 the attack vector gets reduced. You don't have a host OS, which is a bare metal, so I mean to say the attacks will be little bit minimal than the type 2 hypervisor.
Yeah, because in the model 1, the hypervisor, it will be installed directly over the host without any operating system. Then in the case of type 2, if you have an operating system and the hypervisor, it will be installed over the operating system, then whatever any bugs in the operating systems, it will affect the hypervisor security and operation. An organization wants, there is no need. All of you answered this question, right? This question I added just for one thing. When we say hybrid, gentlemen, it is not only 2 models. It can be 3 different implementation models, as we can see in this example. They have a public infrastructure or a public, what we can say, publish. They have private publish and they have community publish. All of them, it will be hybrid. Because in some situation, people they are got confused. They are saying hybrid, it's 2 models, but the right definition is 2 models or more. 2 models or more. What is the difference between cloud hosting and virtualization? This is a good question. This question, Prem, he sent it to me, and I know that this is important question when I added in the quiz because I want to make sure that all of you understand the difference. What is the difference between cloud hosting and virtualization? Someone rather than Prem, please.
Yeah, I did not write this question.
Anyone else?
Yes, virtualization is about more utilize your hardware and operating systems that you have, which will be more about dividing them or how many you want to divide them. In terms of cloud hosting, is about يعني hosting your environment or whatever you want in your cloud provider.
Cloud hosting and virtualization, gentlemen, unfortunately, people we are speaking about both of them as the same concept. Also, we are not. Cloud hosting, main factor in cloud hosting is virtualization. Without virtualization, cloud hosting, it will be very difficult because this means that I will use physical servers. And in the case of using physical servers, when to provide redundancy, to provide failover and all this stuff, it will be very expensive. If I have a data center and I have a virtualization software and everything is running fine, then what will be the difference between the cloud hosting as a private network and the on-prem? People we are saying almost we are the same, and there is no need to make any changes in my application to change it into a cloud hosting, although this is a wrong concept. Cloud hosting, as we mentioned in the first day, it has some characteristics. If these characteristics are not achieved, then this is not a cloud hosting. It should be accessed from anywhere, broad network access, self-provisioning, resources pool, service meter, and all this stuff. These are the real characteristics of the cloud hosting. Then usually when people they are speaking to vendors or whatever, and we are saying we have our data center and we want to migrate our application into a private cloud, then we will be able later to move into a community or to a public. Some engineers we are loving and saying there is no need and everything, it will be the same. If you are hosting the private cloud in the your data center, then it will be exactly as a virtualization. Of course not. We need to change the infrastructure because we want to get the benefits and features of the hosting which are represented in its characteristics as we highlight before. This question, I think this is very important, gentlemen, and I am really happy that all of you answered correctly. Gentlemen, whatever the model of the data published, customer, he is the owner of his data. Customer, he is the owner of his data, even in the SaaS, the customer, he is the one who is responsible for his data. This is very important, and usually you will find one of the questions. It may be direct or indirect. What is the difference between security and the privacy from point of view of cloud publishing view? I think this we discussed before. This is the question. And as we mentioned, that the security, it will protect the data. Privacy, it will protect the personal information for the employees and the customers. Okay. What is the most suitable method for deleting in cloud environment? I think we discussed this question before. What is better in erasing data from cloud publisher? We discussed the question as well. What does access control mean? What are the components of access control? We mentioned that the access control, it is the authentication, authorization, accounting. And what are the components? The components, it will be the directory services database, which it consists of the user information. The provisioning service, which it will provision a service, assign user permissions and delete these permissions, and so on. This again a good question, but it's very important to understand that the access control importance, it's not only for cloud, gentlemen. This is for any service. It will be for identify the user, if he is legitimate user or not, authenticate the user, authorize the user. We answered this question, types of the hypervisors. Okay, we are done. We finished this question. Okay, that's fine. Great. Okay, now let's go for the our module. Do you have any questions before continue the today's session? Okay.
So I have one question. I mean, I spoke to Prem also a few times. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
So we do this domain 1, domain 2, right? We are doing domain 1, we can remember, but when you go to domain 2, it is such a vast. That time we'll forget the domain 1 when we are in domain 2. So how we can, try to remember everything together, domain 1, domain 2, not to...
you have to understand. You have to understand. And if you remember in our methodology, we mentioned that you have one line called review. You have to review. You have to review. Reviewing is very important. Of course, you will forget, but you have to review. When you review it, the data, it will be in your mind.
Okay.
There is no way that you will say that, okay, today I started module number 1 and it's great with me. Then when I start number 6 or finish the course, I forget number 1. Of course, you will forget. This is the nature of the human. And this is the reason why I mentioned that you must get a piece of paper. You have to write all the important information in paper. Keep this paper aside. If you feel that any piece of information which I give it, it's new for you, add it. If you read the questions and you find that some of these questions are new, you add it, and so on. This number 1. Number 2, the most important thing to remember the information, it's answering questions. By answering more and more questions, of course, I'm not saying as usual, you have to answer 1 million questions. If you will go to the exam without answering 1 million questions, you will not pass. This is bullshit. This is bullshit, gentlemen. You have to answer 10,000 questions and 20,000. This is bullshit. You have to follow the methodology. Get the questions, and the questions which we agree about it, if you will get it from Buzz for sure, or you will get it from the book which we recommend, or whatever. This it's a complex question, because the question, it will not depend upon single fact in the course. It may have multiple facts from different locations or different, modules, and this it will be considered as repeating your reviewing your information. But unfortunately, I don't have a direct model to tell you that you will not be able to forget the data. Of course, you will forget. This is nature of the human. Then you have to review. If you feel that you are forgetting the data completely, then you have to increase the period of the review in your schedule. If you will feel that the information is in your mind and reviewing it will be very easy, then you have to make it 5 days, 4 days, 3 days, whatever. Then by the end of the day, period of review, it will return. The recommended method that you have to study, then review. What does I mean? If I am studying a new course, I will get the manual. I read it first time. When I read it first time, this one, I call it a study. Then I have to review again. Review, this means that I will read it again, but reviewing, because when I will read the first time, I'm quite sure that there are some information which I did not get it 100%, or some information which I want to highlight it more, and so on. And by going through the course, there are a lot of facts and artifacts. It will be more clear in the next module. When you will review it, it will be so quickly. And for example, if you consider the first study 1 month, then the review, it will be 15 days. The review, it will be okay for you because this, it will stress on the information in your mind because you read it twice. Why we did not have this concept in our methodology? Because we eliminate the study phase by our training course. Then I am not telling you study. No, I don't want you to study because khalas, already we studied through the training course. Then you have now to review it. Then this means that actually you are reading the books twice. You are reading the book twice. Okay? Okay, good.
Thank you.
Most welcome. Now, gentlemen, we will speak about the yeah, Bram.
I have one question, I think, on the container security. So the way I understand, sir, is we will use actually an image. Actually, I mean to say for I mean I'm just saying like when I will use a I'm going to say sorry. The way I think I understood is the containers are usually deployed as images. Okay. So my question here is that usually for checking the integrity, we sometimes use some tools like checksum and other things. So when we are actually deploying an image for a container, how do we exactly do the check? So my question is actually relating to actually the security aspects of in a container.
No, this is a sophisticated question, and it's not a part of CCSP at all. This related to the containers technology. There are a lot of technology. There are Kubernetes. There are I cannot remember the platform which it can create these containers, but each one of them it has its own for ensuring the integrity of the information. And this is a complicated issue. Don't go so deep in these technologies. Just understand only what is required from this technology for the cloud publishing. That's it. But if you need more details, then this means that it will be a different course.
Okay.
For Kubernetes or whatever.
Okay.
Okay. Now we will start our session, and we last time we stopped at the common threads. And common threads, it will be a very important topic for people who are working in the one minute, because I think there is a problem. This module, it should be okay. This module, it will be covered later, and this is the reason why I remove it from here. Type. Anyway, I will bypass this. Here you are. Okay. First common thread which we have to start with is the data breaching. What is the data breaching? Data breaching, it is a very important concept which you have to understand. Data breaching, gentlemen, means that the data, it is available. The data, it's still available, but it was accessed by unauthorized users. Okay, I want this to be very clear, especially when we will speak about the data loss. What we will say that the data loss, you know, when we mention that security, it means three concepts. It means the three concepts. What are they? C, I, and A. What is CIA? What is CIA?
Confidentiality, integrity, and availability.
Yes, this is security. When we are speaking about security and I have any asset and I'll tell you, please protect my asset or security for my asset, then I have to think about three different concepts. Confidentiality, integrity, authenticity, availability. Although in the new technology now we are having other two factors as authenticity and non-repudiation. We're having as authenticity and non-repudiation, but I don't want to confuse you now. Just we will speak about the CIA. And when we are saying data breaches, the data breach means that you are affecting the confidentiality of your data. The data is accessed by unauthorized user. Then this means that as an organization who may have your data published over the internet, you're still able to access the data, you are still able to run your application, but unfortunately there are some unauthorized access for this data, and if they are able to capture this data or make some changes or whatever. When the data breaches, means that there is a breach for the data. The data is accessed by unauthorized users. The second thread, it is insufficient identity, credentials, and access management. You remember when we spoke about access controls? Access control, this is very important. And we have to keep the service control service directory, which is populated by the user credentials, passwords, attributes. And as I mentioned before, these attributes are used also for the authorization and so on. When this information are not enough. And for example, if you don't have a powerful authentication system, just you have to run username and password, and for authentication, you have to give it just for a username. Osama, he is allowed or not allowed, and Brem, he is allowed and not allowed, and all this stuff. Then this, it will be poor. Then what will be the strong one? The strong one that you must have some attributes in which department he is working, in which country, in which division, in which building, and so on. And based on these attributes, you can assign the authorization. Also, in some situation for the access management, in some situation, gentlemen, unfortunately, developers are not understanding the security when they can assign permissions for their applications based on cookies. Then when you are looking to some application, a cookie, which is a text file, it's written on your hard disk. Then even if you logged out and this data, it's not deleted, this cookie, it's not deleted from your machine. And this means that if there is any hacker and he has access to your machine, then he will be able to utilize the same cookie. And from the point of view of the application, that this is already authenticated due to the presence of this cookie on his machine. When the access control, it is very, very important, which we have to take it in our consideration when we consider the cloud computing. Also, we have to understand the importance of the privileged or administrator accounts, privileged and administrator accounts, because these accounts are able to provision servers, provision users, delete service, delete user, and so on. When this, it will affect all the performance and the presence of the users' operations or daily operations. The third Threat, it is insecure interfaces.
So, 1 minute, I have one question. So, what is the difference between data breach and the cyber incident?
Data breach and what?
Data breach and the cyber incident.
Cyber incident and data
Or
breach.
cyber attack. Yeah.
Cyber and data breach is one of it's an incident. What is incident? What is the definition of incident?
I mean,
Incident,
somebody intruder get into the network. That might be the cyber incident. Adversary.
Incident.
Incident
This. Okay, go ahead.
incident as part of the ITIL definition, it's any interruption of the service that you are providing.
That's right. And it's based on events. It is based on events. And this is the reason why we are saying that we are monitoring events. If the event, it will be critical and it will affect the security, then this is event, it will be escalated into incident, and we have to start the instant response planning or plan book.
Mm-hmm.
Then what is the difference between data breaches and incident? Data breach is an incident. So simple like that. Then the third threat, it is the insecure interfaces and APIs. This is very, very important. And I don't know if you are familiar with the cloud hosting or not. But just I want to tell you something, gentlemen. By the end of the day, the cloud hosting, it's a data center located in some location in the world. If I want to access a service or management plan or resource or hardware or whatever, I must have an interface to allow me to access this service. For example, I am working with box.com and I want to access my data stored in the storage. I want to upload data. I want to download data from the storage. Then, how can I do it? How I will reach to this storage? By the end of the day, it's a storage, it's a box, and it's reside in the cloud service provider premises, and I want to access. How I will access? I will access through an interface. What is the interface? The interface here, it is an application. It's an application. It can be a browser. It can be a browser, box.com. For example, box.com, if you will go to the browser, write box.com, it will open, type username and password. You are allowed to upload and download. Then this is the interface for the storage. Or if you are using a mobile or tablet, then you will be able to download the agent or the client or the program, and you will be able to upload and download and so on. Then whatever any service provided by a cloud service provider, it must be provided through an interface. It's an application, which it will be as the intermediate between the user and the service itself. Is the service, it can be hardware, it can be program, it can be software, whatever it is. The APIs, this is another concept which is called application program interface. Application program interface. How the applications are communicated. In some situation, for example, I have a security device. And this security device, it is generating logs. And I want to collect these logs. Then these logs, it will be generated and it will be sent to a SIM or any other application which it will be able to make some processing. But how it will, these two applications, it will communicate together. They will communicate together through the API, the application program interface. And the application program interface, this means that it will be an interface between two different programs. If the interfaces or these APIs are not secure based on the application security requirements, which we will cover it in domain number 4, then this means that you will be in trouble because hackers, they will not concentrate on the media or the service to hack or the user to hack. No, he will be concentrate on the API or on the program, because if he was able to hack these interfaces, then this means that you would be able to have an access to the service and all the behind data and applications. Okay. Next threat, it is the system vulnerabilities. I think all of you are familiar with this, gentlemen. In IT, everything it's running with hardware, software. Everything, even the hardware device. If you are buying a PC or if you are buying a firewall or whatever, it has its own software. And in some situations, this software running the hardware, we call it firmware. We are calling firmware. Firmware, this is a software which is running these applications. I mean hardware devices. Then whatever any device, whatever any application, whatever any operating system, whatever any interface, whatever any application program interface, just to name it, whatever any component in your data center, there may have some vulnerabilities. You may know it or you may not know it, because by the end of the day, it's a programming language. And also it's a human being who did this. He may made a mistake, there may be some problems, and so on. This is the nature of the human being, and we agree about this. But of course, as a security administrator, it will not be acceptable, because I don't want to make these system vulnerabilities the main path for hackers to penetrate my network. Then what I have to do, I have to run the applications to check for vulnerabilities. I have to check vulnerabilities for whatever any components I have. I have to work very close with the manufacturer to understand what are the discovered vulnerabilities and what are the required patches to be downloaded on the device to protect its security and its functionality, and so on. Then system vulnerabilities, this is very important, and I am quite sure that all of you in your organizations, they are dealing with these vulnerabilities by software tools, which is discover these vulnerabilities and download the corresponding managements to protect the data. The next method is, or the next threat, I mean, the account hijacking. What's account hijacking? Account hijacking, gentlemen, this means that you have an account and a hacker, he will be able to take control over this account, and he will be able to utilize all the resources which you have permission to. How he can do it? As I mentioned before, this account hijacking, it may be through a cookie, for example. What do we mean? That the authentication or authorization, it may be built on a cookie, which it's loaded on the machine. When, for example, if you are sitting in on a shared machine and a user was accessing his resources, and he left the machine after some time, another one, he tried to access other data, he can utilize this cookie, and this will give him a permission to access these resources. This is number one. Number two, account hijacking, it can in the form of man-in-the-middle attack. What is a man-in-the-middle attack? Man-in-the-middle attack, it is something like that. You have a user here, he is trying to access one server here. By some methods, there will be a hacker, and the hacker, he will be able to send any malicious software or whatever data into the user. Then the IP, he will be able to change the IP address. Then the IP address for the service, from the point of view of the user, it will not be the server, it will be the hacker himself. And if the user wants to send the data to the server, the new IP address, which he have it from the hacker as piece of information, receive it, it will be the hacker himself. Then the hacker, he will capture the data, and also he will send it to the server to be processed. Again, it will come back and it will be returned to the user. As you can see that from point of view of the account, or the point of view of the user that he is still communicating with the server, but actually he is communicating with the server through the user. And this, which we call it in some situation, account hijacking or man-in-the-middle attack, and so on. Okay. Malicious insider, this is one of the most dangerous threats in IT. And usually over the internet, you will find a lot of studies. We are mentioned that 90% of the attacks happened on the services. It's coming from insiders. What is insiders? These are the trusted users. You remember when we said that there is a new concept came up in the last 3 years or 5 years, which called zero-day attack. Zero trust network. Because we are saying we don't want to trust anyone. We don't want to trust anyone. Unfortunately, when you are working in an organization, usually users are trusted. If you are working in or publishing data in a cloud service provider, you will find your data, it's under control of the insiders. Who are these insiders? Insiders are the administrators who are working in the cloud service provider, for example. They may be the administrators who are working in a cloud service provider, or maybe some technicians who are working as a cloud service provider. And this means that they will be able to have an access for the data. Or it may be internal user and in an organization. Unfortunately, the malicious insider, these are the users which you are provide him username and password to access resources, and they will utilize these credentials to hack your network. And this, we have to do a lot of protection controls or security controls, as for example, the screening. You have to make a screening. In some situations, gentlemen, if I'm working in Microsoft, for example, and I want to know any information about a competitive company, I can hire someone from my team in the other company, or I can push him to work in the other company. Then he can collect the information and secrets and tell me about it. But if I make a screening as the company, and I know that he was working in Microsoft, and Microsoft is considered as a competitor for us, then I have to be careful. Because this can be future malicious insider, which he can capture my data and he can share it with Microsoft later in the future. The other threat, it is the APT, Advanced Persistent Threats. This is the most dangerous type of hackers. This is the most dangerous type of hackers. Why? APT, gentlemen, they are very, very, very talented. They are very, very talented. They have the resources, we have the money, they have the time. When we are penetrating your network, we don't want just to capture some data. We want to have full control over your data, or we want to make reconnaissance over your data. When they are in, and they will not show you that they are in because we are espionaging on your network. Usually, APT, it will be the form of intelligent services. And this, it can be between different countries or same country where the intelligence services, we want to espionage some internal organizations or whatever. But what I want you to understand here, in some situation, there are some APTs, they were able to stay in the network for 2 years. 2 years we are collecting data, we are studying the weakness of the network until we will be able to get the network down and affect the customer who are monitoring his network. And the APT, it is one of the most dangerous users. And even if we are using the tools which using the anomaly detection and all this stuff, and we discovered some activity, usually you are not discovering the APT, but you can discover some abnormal activities. In this case, it is recommended to format your system and start from scratch, factory reset. because you don't know what are the tools which he kept in your system, where it is. In some situation, you will have a backdoor. Then if you stop him from one system, he have other control from other backdoor. And this is really a headache, and it is very dangerous if you have such these cases as ABTs. The other threat is the data loss. Data loss, it is very simple. Data loss, this means that it will affect here availability. You don't have the data. Why? Storage is down, servers it's down, whatever, but the data it's lost. I don't have the data. Your hacker, he came and he deleted and so on. Then data loss means that you lost your data. It affects the availability factor from the CIA, which represent the security. Okay. The other threat, which we call it due diligence. What is due diligence? Did you hear about this expression before?
Oh, yes.
What is it?
Due diligence is basically checking that everything is actually correct. I mean to say where all of the things are actually under compliance. I mean to say, in case if there is a security patch which has to be applied, the latest security patches are being applied, or latest updates are being made. So that just to ensure that the attacks on that information asset is minimal.
You are totally right. And here, when we are saying insufficient, this means that you did not do your exercise properly. You want to publish your data into a cloud service provider, but unfortunately you did not check their infrastructures, how they are isolate multi-tenants, how they are working, what are the security controls provided in the cloud service provider, how your data it will be migrated. And unfortunately, after you migrate your application and data, you found that it's not working properly and you are facing some problem. In this case, it's called insufficient due diligence. And by the way, in America and Europe, mainly in America, if there is a case against you and they proved that the security administrator or security or the CISO, he did not do the due diligence properly, he is subject for prison. He is subject for prison, not only fine, no, it is subject for prison as well. Okay, abuse use of cloud services. This it's to understand this. Let me give you one of the examples to understand it. That a normal user, he is a hacker, but he went to a cloud service provider and he asked him to rent a server. And when he starts to rent a server, he has an application. This application, it will create some processes. Each process, it will consume 100% of the processor. Of course, we know in the cloud service provider or in the cloud hosting, I mean, if the resources are utilized, then additional resources, it can be added to the user, or not the user, I mean to the server. Then now he started the application. The application generate first process, which engaged one first processor, second one engaged the second, third, fourth, fifth. He has total 5 process. The monitor service in the cloud service provider, they know that it's 100% when they add additional processors. Again, the application create new processes, and these processes consume the processor and so on. Then this means that by after 1 or 2 or 3 hours, he may be able to reserve all the processors from the cloud service provider resource pool. Then this means if there is any legitimate user, he is trying to access the service and he wants an upgrade for the processors, he will not be able to get any processors. Why? Because these processors are already utilized and engaged by another customer. And this means that it seems that the cloud service provider does not have the enough resources to publish the application. And this, it will be a crisis. This we call it abuse use. It will be a normal user, although that he is trying to abuse the cloud services resources. We got a solution for this, and we will cover this later. How we can do it? We can do something called limits. We can have something called limits. We will speak about limits later in the data security domain. Okay. Now, yes, Prem.
Sir, we were talking about the due diligence. So there is another terminology also called as due care. What is the difference between due care and due diligence?
Okay. Due diligence to make sure that everything is running fine and compliance based on security. Okay. Based on policies and processes. Due care, it is the exercise which you will do it to secure your network.
Okay. Okay.
When due care, these are the firewalls, the IBS, the organizational controls, the physical controls, people controls, technical controls, and so on. This which we call it due care.
Okay.
Okay, the last thread, it is the denial of service. Of course, all of us know denial of service. Denial of service, it will, you will do some activity on your network or servers or whatever, then services, it will not be reachable. Unfortunately, gentlemen, when we are saying denial of service, people, they will think about network denial of service. What is network denial of service? Network denial of service that you have a user here and you have a server, then you have here the internet. When you are a TCP, for example, a TCP, we have something called three-way handshake. You will initiate a connection, first connection, then it will reply. This it will called SYN. Then it will reply by ACK, acknowledged, synchronization, acknowledgement, and finally it will be sent. Then you have the three handway check. What will happen? When you are initiating one of these connections, there must be a reply from the server. Of course, this reply, it will utilize part of the processor and part of the memory. Then what is the denial of service? Denial of service that this user, he will send number one, or let me change the color. He will send the user number one, then the server, it will request. Then he will not answer with the third one. He will not answer with the third one, because if he answers with the third one, then there will be an open session. But he will not answer the third one. What will happen? He will initiate a new one, new connection. Then the server, it will respond, because from the point of view of the server, it's a different connection. Then he will not respond with the third one. He will send another one, and so on. Of course, each one of these, it will consume a part of the memory and the processor. And if I have 100 or 100,000 of these connections, then all the resources of the server will be engaged. Then if there is any legitimate user, if there is any legitimate user, and this user, he is trying to connect to the server, he will not be able. Why? Because the server does not have any resources to be able to respond to the user. And this, which we call it denial of service for the network. The point which I want you to understand here, gentlemen, in cloud, not in cloud, in security in general, we did not speak about denial of service, that it's network denial of service. It can be anything. It can be processor denial of server. You have some processes which engaged 100% of the processor. Then if there is any user, he try to connect to the server, he will not be able. Why? Because it's 100% utilized server. Maybe processor, maybe network interface card, whatever, any component, it can be affected. Let me ask you a question. I don't know if you know this or not, because this is very, very old, but this is a good example to explain. Did you hear about NIMDA virus?
No.
Okay, lentivirus, this was announced almost 20 years or 25 years. What it was doing, it is very simple. This application, it will create 4 processes. 4 processes. What these processes are doing, we don't know, but 4 processes. Each processes, it will utilize 25% of the process. That's it. Then, what the user he will tell you? The user he will tell you, my machine is damn slow, although I don't have anything to run it on it. And when we press Control, delete, and open what are the processes, we will find 4 processes, each one 25. Then we have to take all these processes and or kill these processes when the machine is working. But again, this process it will be created again, and so on. This is one of the denial of service model. This is one of the denial of service model. When the denial of service, it is not only processor, because people, when they are saying denial of service, then this means that it is the network denial of service. No, it can be network, it can be processor, it can be memory, it can be whatever, any resource. What is the main definition? Legitimate users will not be able to access the service. That's it. Nothing less, nothing. Okay. Okay. Do you have any questions in this before going further for any other topic?
So what is the difference, denial of service and DDoS attack? Both are same, right?
Sorry, what is the difference between what?
What's the difference between denial of service and the DDoS attack?
Denial of service and?
DDoS attack, distributed denial of service.
Distributed denial of service, it has a different concept. Let me share the whiteboard. The distributed denial of service, it will be similar to this one. You have multiple users. We are multiple users. You have internet connection, and you have a file server. And this user number 1, user number 2, user number 3, all of them, we are trying to send this denial of service connection. Then they will send SYN, then ACK, and they will not continue. Again, SYN and ACK, it will not continue. What is the point behind this? The point behind this, we are calling bots. What is bots? These are the machines over the internet, which hacker he has control over these machines. And when I want to attack some specific area or a specific server, I will not do it from my IP host itself. I will not do it from my machine. I am, as a hacker, I am sitting here and I will give a command for all these zombies or bots that we have to initiate the connection against this server. Then all the security administrator, what we are saying different IP addresses here, because if it's coming from a single, the denial of service, it is one IP address, then it is very easy if I have a firewall here that I will tell him, drop the IP address of this machine. Although he can change his IP address, in this it will be a single IP address which I can work with. But when I have thousands of bots and all of them has a different IP address, and this again also they have different IP address, and they are changing these IP addresses, then you will not be able to control it. This it will be very difficult. And this is which we call it distributed denial of service. Distributed is coming because the attack is coming from distributed locations. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we deserve a break, but unfortunately the time it will not be enough for today. Then we will not have 15 minutes as usual. Let's do it 10 for today. Then we will continue the session. Do you have any questions before going for break? Okay, then see you after 10 minutes. Thank you. Okay. Now we will start a new topic, which is considered a very important topic, which is business continuity and disaster recovery. And cloud make business continuity and disaster recovery piece of cake after it was a nightmare and cost a lot of money for the organizations. But before going further for the business continuity and disaster recovery over the cloud, we want to understand what is the difference between business continuity and disaster recovery. Any answer? What is the difference between business continuity and disaster recovery? Any answer?
Yeah, so as the name says, the business continuity, it mainly we focus on bringing the business back to operational. And I mean, when there is a disaster, when there is an out, systems are unavailable, or we mainly focus on bringing the business back to operational. Disaster recovery, I think it's mainly a focus on bringing back your IT infrastructure, your servers, your access to your data restoring, all the stuff.
In case in disasters.
In case of disaster recovery, yeah.
Okay, that's good. This is really the two definition where business continuity is caring about the maintaining your operations in all the scenarios. Then if you may have a problem in your organization, it may operational problem, it may be whatever it is, but you want to ensure business continue. For example, if you are buying standby server, or you configure a cluster, or you had two firewalls working together, or a load balancer. It's a type of business continuity because you want to make sure that the business it will be continue without any disruption. The disaster recovery, that there is something which is called a disaster, and the data center, it may be down, or a service may be down, and you want to retrieve or refer over your services. It is very important to understand what are the main components related to business continuity and disaster recovery. Number one, we in business impact analysis, there is something called business impact analysis. What is business impact analysis? When we are speaking about business continuity and disaster recovery, it is very important to understand what are the service processes or products, processes or assets which are affecting the organization. For example, if you are saying our ERP system, this will be very important, and it will be critical because it's doing most of the actual work in the organization. Maybe printing invoices, searching databases, adding informations, and so on. Or maybe email system, or maybe ACM, enterprise contact management, and so on. Then there are some important services which its presence, or its if these services are not present, then they will affect the organization, and it will cause financial and loss for the organization. Also, there is another important factor which we have to take in our consideration. For how long do we for how long we can survive? Suppose that the email is down. Okay, how many hours or how many days, it depends upon the service, I can survive without affecting my organization goals and objectives. Okay, email, I can accept it for 1 day, but after that, it may cause a problem. I am receiving I'm receiving emails from my customers, I am sending emails to my vendors and partners, and so on. But it will affect the daily operations, and consequently, it will cost me money. Then this means that you have to define what are the critical services for your company. Number two, you have to define for how long these services can be down without affecting the organization's goals and objectives. Finally, what is the data size which I can continue operation without any effect if these data are lost? For example, suppose that I am saying that today I want to migrate my service into another data center. Then when the data it was fell over to the other data center, I found that there is some invoices are missed. They are not updated in the new data center. Then the manager said, it's okay, no problem. If we missed 5 or 10 or 15 invoices, it's not a big deal. Then any operator, he can input these invoices again, and everything, it will be the same as the original data center. These values and definitions, gentlemen, it is very important to understand that this is not your decision as security administrators. It is not your decision as technical team. These decisions, it's coming from the business. This is very important. This, it's coming from the business. You are as security administrator, you can understand the VPN, understand certificates, understand the firewalls, understand IPS, understand encryption. All these things is good, but you don't understand what is the process which it's running in the manufacturing factory. You don't know it. You don't know what the importance of these processes and related activities, and what are the activities which are important and which are critical for these processes, and if these processes are down, then how this it will affect the main processes of manufacturing, how the company or the factory they can survive without the raw materials and so on. This is not your decision, it's a management decision, our business decision. And by the end of the day, you have to understand that the business impact analysis, it is very important to know that it is not your exercise, it's a business exercise. It's a business exercise. And after we have to create this business impact analysis, we have to come out by 3 important pieces of data. What are these important pieces of data? Let me share my iPad because I want to write some information here. Okay. Sorry for this pause time. Then as we mentioned, the BIA, the business impact analysis. What are the important data which I want to have it here from the business impact analysis, or what are the results of the business impact analysis? Number one, you must have what are the critical data, critical services. you have to define, or the management, we have to define what are the critical services. It may be, for example, email, ERB. Let's say, for example, ERB. Let's say email. Let's say ACM, Enterprise Content Management, where the organization keep all its documents and data on, and so on. Okay, whatever any data or application services available in this organization, which are important for their operation, it should be mentioned here. Second piece of information, it will be the RTO, Recovery Time Objective. Recovery Time Objective. How long this data it can be down without affecting the organization? How long this data it can these services can be down without affecting the organization? Then we are BO, Recovery Period Objective. What is the size of the data or the period of operations, which if we lose it, it will not affect the organization operation. If we lose it, this period of time, if we lose its operations, it will not affect the organization. Then these are the three pieces of information which you must get from the BIA, from the business impact analysis. You have to make a cost-benefit analysis. Is it cost effective to move the business continuity into cloud, or to move your services into the cloud? For example, if you are sitting on a prem, then you have your data center. But if you want to have a business continuity and disaster recovery, then this means that you have to fail over your data into another data center. And this it will be expensive. Why? Because it depends upon the time where you want your service to be fail over. If you will say, for example, I will be able to continue my operation for 6 hours only without availability of critical services, then this means that the RTO, it will be 6 hours, and you must be able to fill over all these services within 6 hours to the alternative data center. Then this means that you must have the data center with the VMs and servers, firewalls, security, everything to be ready. Then you will be able to fill over the service and continue providing the service. But in the case of the cloud service provider, the situation is totally different. Why? Because there is no need for this. What you have to mention for your cloud service provider, please, I want to provide business continuity. When the data, it should be replicated to another data center. Then if the main data center which provide the production information is down, the second data center, it will serve my users' requests and it will not affect their operations. Then you will find here there is no need for a separate site. It's only a matter of configuration, and you will not pay anything here at all until if you are using the services, because we read that in the cloud you are paying only for the services which you are using. Then here you have to do this cost-benefit analysis. Is it worth it to move into the cloud or not? If the business continues and disaster recovery, it will be a cost-effective solution of the cloud or not? Also, there is very important point, gentlemen. If we moved our application and service into the cloud, is it a good solution or not? As we mentioned before, we have many factors. I will not be able to say that we have a right answer here. No, I don't have a right answer. Usually, I am answering with a single word. It depends. It depends. For example, I have to understand that I have a resource pooling, and this resource pooling and cyclic demand. What do you mean? If your application, you know that your application, you need some bursts, and the load, it will increase at some time. in your calculations. When if you are on-prem, this means that if you are expecting that the number of transactions, it will be increased once per month by double the normal operation transactions, daily normal operation transactions. Then from scratch, when you are buying the hardware and make your calculations, you have to create your data center to support the high level or the burst level. Then you will be able to continue your operation, even if it's only 1 day per month. But again, this, if you are not able to do it, your service, it will be affected. But if you are migrating the your service into the cloud, this it will be better, because on-prem you are paying money just for usage once per month, 12 times per year. That's it, and you pay the full amount. Act as you will use this every day. You are using these resources every day. But with the cloud, no, it is very interesting. Why? Because in recycling demands, if you have more and more transactions, it's not an issue, because your appliances, it can be scaled in horizontal direction or vertical direction, and the resources, it can be added. And in this case, this means that you will be able to perform your transactions, and you will be only for this information which are for these resources which you are using only. And if the transactions return back to its normal number, then for any additional resources, it will be removed from your pool and you will not pay for it. Then it depends upon the nature of your application. It requires cyclic demands. There is a resource pooling. Do we have any problem for resource pooling? Yes, of course we have a problem with resource pooling. Because if you are shared resources with other tenants or other customers, then this means that if there is any hacker who was able to take a control over these physical devices, then he will be able to read the information for all these users. Especially if he working as a normal or a customer. As I gave you an example before, that a hacker, he will act as a customer and he will have some application. It will try to overload or make buffer overflow on the memory. And when it will make a buffer overflow on the memory, it means that he will be able to read all the contents. You will tell me, okay, wait. If he will be able to read the contents, he will be able to read his contents only, because this part of the memory is dedicated for him. Why he should be able to read the other memory? He will be able to read the other memory, gentlemen, because actually it is a physical memory and it is distributed logically. It is a physical memory distributed logically and a part is assigned for each customer. But if the hacker, he has an application which it was able to make overflow, then this logical isolation is not there, and he can dump contents of the memory. He can dump the contents of the memory, and in this time, it will not be for his machine or his VM, it will be for the host, the whole host. Then this means that he will be able to read some sensitive data for the other customers. Okay, you remember when we discussed the CapEx versus OpEx, and we said that the CapEx, it will be the total amount which you have to pay when you are creating the data center, but the OpEx, it will be the operation cost which you have to pay it for monthly, and the operation cost, this you are paying for only what you use. In some situation, CapEx, it may be cheaper, but you are not able to pay a bulk. And if you can remember, I gave you an example that if you want to buy iPhone 14 in cash, and it will cost you $1,200, and if you will buy it in terms, it will cost you $1,400. Data center cost and operational cost expenses, this is very important, and you have to do it in a professional assessment. As you, if you can remember, I mentioned here the assessment, gentlemen, it should not take this cost only. You have to take the operational cost. If you have a data center on-prem, then you have administrators, you have operations, you have technicians, you have AC, you have power. All these represent cost. Besides, you have a backup. You must have a backup for servers. In cloud, I don't need the backup. Also, in on-prem, you need disaster recovery. You don't need a disaster recovery in the on-cloud. Then all these are the costs which you have to take into consideration. It is really unprofessional. When you make the calculation, you will say, okay, if I call my data center, it will cost me $1 million. But if I want to make it OPEX, it will cost me $5,000. Then I will take $5,000 per month. Then 5,000 times 12, it will be 60,000. If the depreciation time, it will be 5 years, then 60,000 times 5, 300,000. Okay, then which one is cheaper? This is not the right way to calculate it, because there are other factors which you have to take it in your consideration, as well as we mentioned, backup, security controls, physical controls, power, AC, racks, physical area. You don't need to have any physical area. This area which you are utilizing as a data center in your organization, it can be utilized for offices or whatever, anything else, which it can be more useful for the business. Okay. Focus change. What is focus change? Focus change, yes, it's very important. Although it is something related to business more than technical, but it is very important for management. Why? Let's say that we have some investors, they want to create a factory or open a factory for cars or whatever. These investors, they don't understand IT, they are not interested in IT, they are understanding the automotive field and the automotive market. Unfortunately, if they don't have the experience, we have to hire IT manager, we have to hire engineers, we have to hire technical staff to manage the data center. Then you will find that although they are automotive factory for manufacturing cars, but again, they have a department which is dedicated for IT, and they have high experience in applications, in services, in networks, in security, and this it will cost money. And this is the reason why we are considered IT, it's a cost center. We are not doing any profit. But although we are a cost center, but we are very important. Without these applications and maybe controls over the manufacturer, the factory, we will not be able to continue. Now, when you will host your application in the cloud, I don't care about IT. I don't have to focus on IT, applications, services, security, all this stuff. This is not my problem at all. I have to focus only on my business, how to develop my business, how to improve my business. If I'm doing my business in this way, how can I do it in a different way, or different processes, or different type of procedures, which it will generate more money for me. And this means that you have focus change from the IT and all related issues into the business issues. Ownership and control. This is very important. Ownership, of course, you are not owning anything. You don't own anything. You are renting services. You are renting servers, storage, applications, and so on. And you are paying each month amount, specific amount. It's similar to be a person who buy his own car. I have my own car and I paid $100,000 to buy my car. I am happy with that. And by the end of the day, this is my car. But when you are renting a car, you will go to the rent car shop and ask him for a specific car. He will give it to you. You don't need to pay the capex. You don't need to pay the $100,000 because this is not your car. This you are not on it. You are not on it, but you rent it. Then who is the owner? The owner, it is the rent the car shop, and you rent it, and you are paying monthly fees for it. Do you have full control in the cloud? Of course not. For example, I remembered I was renting a car for a year, and I found that every month I have a 2 or 3 traffic violations every month. Believe it or not, 2 or 3 traffic violations every month due to the speed. And unfortunately, it's not high speed. It is only 10 or 15 kilometers per hour more than the allowed range. Then I said it is the best way to have cruise, speed cruise. Then I will adjust it and I will forget about it. Then if it's my car, I don't have any problem. I will go to any shop. I'll ask him to do this exercise for me. Very easy, pay for it. They will install it in my car. It's up and running. I don't have any problem. But because it is not my car, I rent it. When I went to the rent-a-car shop and asked him for this cruise, he said, no, we are not allowed to do this. And this means that if you are renting the service as you are renting the resources from the cloud, you don't have a full control. Is it absolute? Of course not. It is not absolute, but you may have some exceptions. If you are smart enough that you will be able to write a good service level agreement to maintain some control over your infrastructure. And of course, I want you to understand something. Control here, gentlemen, it depends upon the model of the implementation or model of publishing. If you are publishing EAS, if you are renting EAS, then you will have some control over it. You will have control of operating systems, applications, data, security controls, and so on. The control, it will decrease by moving from EAS into PaaS and from PaaS into SaaS. SaaS, it is considered the worst control for the customer. SaaS, it is considered the worst or least control for the customer. Yes, it will be the highest control for the customer. This is very important. You can find it as a question, maybe as direct or indirect, but you have to understand that, yes, it will provide you some control because you are owning the operating system, the applications, the data, controls, and so on. But in the SaaS, you are not owning anything. Then your control, it will be very minimal. They may give you some chance to change the logo for your company, to change the background colors, to change some fields in the screen. It will be some sort of customizations, but you don't have anything else. Other important factor, it depends upon the organization itself, cost structure. You know, gentlemen, we found in some organizations that their financial system, they don't understand the operational cost. We have here, yes, allowed to change the color logo EDC and says that, yes. Yes, yes, Prem, of course, you will be able in SES to change some logo, colors, some fields, something like that. It depends upon the services and the cloud service provider and the service which he will provide. Cost structure, this is very important, very important. Why? Let me explain it to you in a way or business model. There are some organizations, their financial department or maybe financial application or maybe financial mentality, we don't understand the operational cost. Do you want to create a data center? Thank you very much. You need $100,000. We will provide it to you. But if I tell you, okay, no, I don't want it in this way, I will have a cloud, and this cloud, it will cost you $5,000 per month. They say, no, I'm really sorry. We don't have a record for this type of payment in our systems. We will not be able to do it. And this is real. We face this case, and what's happening in this case, you know, we found such this case. What you will find, we will find that You have this organization and you have the cloud service provider. Cloud service customer. We will get a broker here. And we will tell him, okay, Mr. Customer, pay. We said that this it will cost you $5,000. Okay, for 1 month. Then per year it will be 60,000. Then we will say to the customer every January pay 60,000 here for the broker, and the broker will pay the $5,000 every month to the cloud. Then this which we call it here because it's structure. This is in some situation it can be happen, and it's real scenario which we face it in our operations. Okay. The other issue which we have to take in our consideration when we think about the business continuity and disaster recovery in cloud, return on investment. Return on investment, how much you will pay and when you will start to collect the benefits out of it. This is very important. This is very important. And usually it depends upon the organization. It may appear after one year, 2 years, 3 years. But for example, let me give you an example. Suppose that your organization, we have on-prem project for a data center, and we want to have disaster recovery side, and you have some security products to protect the data, and you have a backup system. Then these are considered as 4 projects. 4 projects, and each one of them, the data center, it may cost $150,000 US dollars. The disaster recovery, it will cost $100,000 US dollars. The security controls cost $75,000. The backup, it will cost $50,000. When the total, it will be 150, 250, 250, 300, 375 US 370,000 US dollars are required for your data center if you are sitting on-prem. But when you go to the cloud, you find that you are paying only 5,000. 5,000 or maybe let's say 5,000, okay, per month. And as we mentioned, it will be 60,000 per month. But this 60,000 per month, it will be only for the data center. Then the cloud server provider, he said, okay, Mr. Customer, if you want to provide disaster recovery as well, then you have to pay 70,000. If you will pay 70,000, we will provide you the disaster recovery. Then if any data center is down, it will not affect your operation. Security controls, we all provide you basic security controls. If you need sophisticated security controls, that's fine. Please, you have to pay 75,000, and we will provide you SIM locking and so on. If you want a backup as well, then you have to pay 80,000. When you found that you are paying 80,000 per year. Per month, sorry, per year. Okay, now I have to make for the on-prem 375,000 K. If you have a depreciation period 5 years, then this means that within 5 years you have to reach to these values. It will be depreciated. Then now, in my case here, if I have it for 5 years, it will be 400,000. Okay, well, I found that here 400,000 if it's cloud, but as ownership, it will be 375. Then, of course, we'll not be able to say this is better because it's cheaper. No, why? Because don't forget the administration, don't forget the data center, don't forget the all the other costs which it will create this value for you. Then, if the return on investment you have, it depends upon the nature of your organization and how they are calculating this, how they calculate this exercise and the return on investment for your organization. Okay, I think we finished the topic for the business continuity and disaster recovery. Any questions? Yeah, Prem.
On this return on investment, sir, so the thing is that suppose if when we approach a particular client and then actually we convince the client for migrating into cloud. So the thing is that now the thing is that how do we now that let's say the client is actually in on-prem for a long time, and I mean to say he wants to go into cloud, but the thing is that he's only worried about how soon he is going to get the return on investment. What is typically the, I mean to say, like the way I'm seeing actually is that over a period of time, I think whether it is cloud or whether it is on-prem, I think the cost is the same. In fact, cloud is going to be much more costlier than on-prem.
I don't know. It depends. I will not be able to. I mentioned we have many other factors. I'm not looking only for the cost as a cost. If this customer is requiring disaster recovery, he's interested in disaster recovery, he wants to add additional security controls, he had to have a backup and recovery infrastructure. What about the operations? Don't forget that he will eliminate the data center. He will eliminate the cost for the power. Power, it's a really complicated cost issue for data centers. AC, it's a really complicated issue. And sometimes organizations, they are rich, but they don't have the power. I know some organizations in Saudi Arabia, they are saying that we have a problem with the power. We are not able to take other power source from the electricity company. Then return on investment, it depends. There is no right answer, or it is a template. You have to take in your consideration data center space, cost of power, cost of AC, cost of security, physical controls, operations, guards, infrastructure, applications, backup, security controls, disaster recovery. All these you have to take it as a cost as operations and products or services. Then by the end of the day, it's an Excel sheet to define, is it usable or not?
Okay.
Okay. I think it will not be fair to start without a break. This it will be heavy for you. Let's have another 10 minutes. Let's have another 10 minutes and continue the next. Thank you. Now we will continue for the security considerations. If you are wanting to evaluate cloud service providers or to speak with your management about the security considerations, about the cloud publishing, what are the security considerations which you have to take it in your account? And this it will be very important, because if you are knowing the security considerations, you will be able to define what are the risks and what are the suitable security controls. Number one, the security consideration of ES. With ES, as we mentioned, that it's infrastructure as a service. One of the security consideration is the multi-tenancy, that you are accessing the same host or physical server with other users. Then this means that you must have some protection for your data. It may be in form of encryption. Then this means that it will be data, it will be secure, because the other tenant will not be read it, and if they will read it, it does not mean anything for them. It may be, for example, a firewall, which it can make access control, it can check the traffic between multiple zones, and so on. But multi-tenancy is a very important factor which we have to take into our consideration, because as we mentioned that one physical host shared by multiple customers. It's very important not to host any sensitive data on these physical servers. Also, we have the co-location. Co-location, this is very important, gentlemen, and I gave you this example, but I will try to explain it one more. Co-location means that all the users are located in the same area or in the same physical host. For example, if you have a host memory like that. This is VRAM. Let's say it's 10 terabyte. And you have 10 VMs, and each VM, it will have 1 terabyte. Each VM has 1 terabyte. Okay, that's fine. Then now everyone is running fine, and we don't have any problem. And this, we call it as multi-tenancy. Unfortunately, there was a problem which caused buffer overflow. Buffer overflow, this is one of the attacks related to the memory, and it has a lot of different overflow. It has a lot of scenarios, but this means that the data in one of the areas of the or sectors of the RAM, it will be overwritten by another area, by another data which should not be in this area, and this it will cause a problem for the operating system, and it will not be able to continue, and the machine it will crash. When the machine it will crash, this means that some situation the operating system it will do something called the dump. What is the dump? That it will take a copy of all the data in the memory or in the caching, and it will save it in a text file. Then this text file can be shared with the system engineers who are doing the analysis for the problem. Or this dump, it can be done by the hacker. The hacker, he can dump the data from the memory, and he will be able to read all the sensitive data for these customers which were loaded in this memory. And this is one of the problems of the co-location. In co-location, this means that all the users, all the customers who are using the host, they are running on the same physical host, and this is considered as one of the problems which we spoke about it before. Hypervisor security attacks. This is very critical, gentlemen. Why? Because when we will have one host, if we have one host, for example, we have one host here, physical host here, and this physical host, it has its own hypervisor, and I have another host, and this host, again, it has its own hypervisor. If the hypervisor, it was compromised, this means that I will have a control over the VMs under this hypervisor. This problem number one. In some situation, if one of the users, hackers, act as legitimate user and have one VM, and he was able to compromise this VM, it can have an access for the other VMs. Then one VM can have access for the other VMs, and the hypervisor can access the other VMs. Also, you will find that suppose that the customer, he has this VM and this is running fine, but he mentioned that I want what we call it, the business continuity. Then this means that if this host is down, then this VM should be migrated into this host, a separate host. This separate host, it can be in the same data center, and sometimes it may be in a different data center and maybe a different country as well. But now if these two hosts are supporting each other, then there is some sort of interaction between these two hypervisors. Then this means that if this hypervisor, it is hacked, this hypervisor is hacked, then it can have a control also on the other hypervisor. These are the hypervisor security and attacks which is happening when the hypervisor attack can affect the security of the VMs. VM attack can affect the security of other VMs. Hypervisor attack can affect the security of other hypervisors if they are connected together. Okay, network security. Network security, again, by the end of the day, all these resources are connected to a network. And this network, it must be secure. And it is not only the internal network which is connect all these resources together. It can be the external networks, internet connections, or maybe whatever any other connections which it utilize other services. Then the network, it must be secure. It is very, very, very important to use secure protocols, encrypted protocols. When the data, it will not be able to capture it, and if it's captured, it will be encrypted when there will be no reconnaissance. Also, it is very important to split the security network into multiple VLANs, when it will be some sort of segmentations, as we are saying, external zone, DMZ zone, internal zone, data center zone, and so on. It is very important to have a firewall. These firewalls, it will check the traffic between the multiple zones. You must have an IPS or IDS to check the type of the traffic, if it's secure or not, and so on. Anyway, this network security, will cover it in more details in the third module, which is the infrastructure security. Virtual machine attacks, we covered this in the hypervisor. Virtual switch attacks, again, by the end of the day, gentlemen, the virtualization, when you will have a host, it will create some sort of switch, virtual switch on the host. And if the hacker, he was able to control this switch, he will be able to capture the data. Then whatever, any data, it will be exchanged between multiple VMs. If the hacker was able to capture the data from the virtual switch, he will be able to capture this data. And this is considered as one of the main problems of the virtualization. As you can see, virtualization, it's a great solution. It can provide a lot of features, but again, we still have to work very close with the manufacturer and the other security vendors to provide the suitable protection. Denial of service, we explained this in the previous modules. These are the security considerations which you have to take it for the ES, for the infrastructure as secure. For the PaaS, we have the system isolation. What do you mean by system isolation? System isolation, gentlemen, if you can remember, we mentioned in the ES, they will provide you a server, and you will be responsible for the operating systems and other things. Here, when PaaS, the hacker, the cloud service provider, he will have full control over what? The infrastructure, servers, and all this stuff. And you will be responsible for the programming languages, the DLL libraries, programming, and so on. There must be total system isolation between these components for programming and underlying infrastructure. There must be total isolation between the programming platform and underlying infrastructure. The administrators, they should not take any control at all here for the under system isolation. Yes, Brett.
Sir, when you said about administrators should not take any control, I might say from the cloud service providers administrator, are you saying, or from the
customer, I mean.
Okay.
It should be fully under the responsibility of the cloud service provider. Cloud customer, he must not have any isolation. There must be, he must not have any control. There must be totally separate isolation between the platform and the underlying infrastructure. User permissions and user access. Again, these are very important issues. You have to work very close with the owner of the application to define what are the permissions which the user should be aligned or should be allowed. Users, who are the users who should access the data, the applications, how they will access it. Is it through browser? Is it through application? Is it using 2FA? Is it using only password and username and so on? Then this, it's a part of what? Of the access control. You have to define the authentication, you have to define the user access, authentication, authorization, and what are the permissions assigned to these users. It is very important, gentlemen, when we reach to the PaaS, to take care of malware, tokens, backdoors, and these considered as nightmares for the administration. And just the backdoor, what is the backdoor? I want, backdoor trojans and all this stuff, I want just to give you a quick idea about the definition of each one of them. Malware, this are the suspicious software which it can be installed on a system, whatever it is. It can be Trojans, it can be virus, it can be worm, whatever. Then malware in general means that it's a suspicious software which are installed on your host. Trojans, they are programs which it act as doing something, and in the background it's doing another thing. For example, it's a program, it's saying that مثلا, for example, a game. When you will double click this one, it will open a game, solitaire game. Okay, it opens the solitaire game for you. Really, it's opened the solitaire game, but in the background, it's collecting data and send it to the hacker through the internet. When it's doing two factors, of course, you don't know that. If you don't have a proper firewall, which it is blocking all outbound connection from your organization except the allowed one, then this means that the hacker will be able to collect the data from your machine and you receive it on his machine. Backdoors, this is a concept. Although they are considered as tools also, but it is a concept. What is the backdoor? Backdoor, it is the backdoor, the door which it may be in the back of a building where the servants can access or whatever. When this is not the main, it is not the entry for the building. It is not the interface of the real application. It can be a small door which is allowed the developer to able to access the program without any access control. They are saying we may have a problem. We don't want to pass by any access control. Just when he will press some keys, he will be able to access the code immediately. It will be a crisis. Imagine that if there is any hacker, he was able to discover these backdoors, and there are a lot of these. During development, you will find the administrators they are doing. Sorry, I mean the developers, they are doing a lot of backdoors because we are still under developing, and there may be some bugs. It may be administration, it may not be working, or access control it's not working, authentication not working. And what he will do, he will be blocked from his development code. Then they will make this backdoor, they will be able to access it. But of course, after you finish during the testing, you have to remove all these backdoors. These which we call it backdoors. CISSP. The CISSP, of course, the main security consideration for the CISSP is the web application security. Of course, web, it is not secure. Web, it's not secure. And as we will see in application security, why it's not secure. Also, you have to define data policies. Data policies mean that who should access the data and what is the level of access. Is it read only, read and write, change, administration, delete, and so on. And this, it must be defined, and the user must be defined and give them the proper authorization for this data. Also, the data protection and confidentiality. Confidentiality and protection mean that the data, it should be protected. It must be available 24/7 when the user needs it, and it should provide the access for authorized users only. It should provide access for users. It should provide access for authorized users only. These are the factors which you have to take into our consideration. Just, gentlemen, one point which I want you to note here. It is very important to explain to you that you don't have a control over the CISSP as in the ES. Look here in security concentration of CISSP, you have only 3 factors which you have a control on, which you have to do it. And all of them, they are permissions, which is not related to the infrastructure. But look here, when we are speaking about the PAS, how many control do we have? 7 controls. Why? Because as we mentioned, controls over the ES, it is higher than what you have in the PAS, for example. In PAS, we have 4. In CISSP, we have only 3. And this will show you that control which you have it over the ES infrastructure, it is the highest, while in the CISSP, it will be the lowest. You will find one of the questions in the exam related to this topic. It may be a direct question or maybe indirect question. Unfortunately, I will not be able to continue because this would require at least half an hour and we still have only 10 minutes. Then I think we can stop today for today. Any questions, gentlemen, before ending our session today?
Sir, if you could just explain co-location once more.
Co-location means that in general, that everyone he will be in the same area or same location. Here, when we say co-location, means that all the customers are running their application on a single host. Then, if there is any attack or problem on one of the components of this host, this means that the hacker he can read the data stored on this component for the other customers as well. This is very simple like that.
Okay, so which means in case if there is an attack on the host, the VMs, the multiple VMs which are based on that host are also vulnerable.
If there is attack related to physical device, yes.
Okay, okay.
Physical component, I mean, yes, for memory, processor, and so on, yes.
Okay, okay, okay.
Okay, any other questions? Okay.
So we have anything left for domain 3? I think it is there, right? Unit 5 is there still.
No, we still have. Let me check the number of slides. Domain 1, it is 77 slides. Now we are in slide number 60. I think tomorrow we can finish domain. Even tomorrow, I think we can start in domain 2. I'm not sure, but I think we can.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
gentlemen.
We are in good progress, looks like. But
Alhamdulillah, I hope so. I hope so. Okay, thank you
we have
very
to
much.
prepare a lot.
Sorry?
We have to study a lot.
Yeah, of course. Of course. Preparation of CCSP, it's easy, but it requires some time.
Right.
Okay, thank you very much for your time and see you tomorrow in our session, inshallah. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.